It's season 2 of our miniseries podcast within a podcast, State of the Sitcom. And joining us this episode are the hosts of Hey Beautiful Podcast. Can you guess what we'll be discussing from that name?
Let us know your favourite sitcom on Twitter or Instagram at JudgeCast. And if you like what you hear, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the episode and thanks for tuning in.
JudgeCast.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of JudgeCast with myself, Joe Bowden, and this guy,
Jai Taylor.
This is one of our State of the Sitcom episodes where we review the entire sitcom genre from the early days to modern classics.
And this week, we are delighted to be joined by the legend, wait for it, DARY, Kate and Kaitlyn from Hey Beautiful Podcast. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to be here.
Yes, we are.
Great. And so can you tell us a little bit about Hey Beautiful Podcast? What do you guys do?
Sure. So we are currently the only podcast that is recapping every single episode of How I Met Your Mother, one episode at a time, no spoilers. So that is what we do. And it's hard at times to not spoil, but we're committed to that.
Kate's great at editing out anytime we make a slip.
I imagine it must be really tricky. Yeah, just kind of, we would be awful at that. We spoil even when we're not meant to spoil. So
Putting on a
Exactly.
spoiler bleeper or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it's probably not a surprise that we are covering How I Met Your Mother,
What?
HIMYM, this week.
I thought we were doing Home Improvement.
Oh.
Oh, crap. I am underprepared for that.
But yeah, obviously it's How I Met Your Mother. So can I just ask, first of all, what for people that maybe don't know, why is it called Hey Beautiful Podcast?
Sure. So that is actually the official title of the theme song of How I Met Your Mother.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. It was written by the creators of How I Met Your Mother. They have a band called The Solids, and the name of the song is Hey Beautiful.
Amazing.
So we wanted to do a real deep cut for the title.
It's one for the fans, that one, isn't it? You know, like,
Right?
who you're talking to. That's great. That's, yeah,
And it works because we're both so beautiful. So, you know.
obviously.
I couldn't work it out. I was looking and kind of listening to you and going, there must be something I'm missing. And yeah, okay, great. Thank you so much. That's cleared that up.
Yeah.
And I've obviously just shown my hand that I am maybe not the biggest of How I Met Your Mother fans, but Joe.
I mean,
is.
yeah, I'm quite a fan, and you've watched quite a lot of it with me.
Yeah. But we're good. So yeah, it's why. I mean, obviously you picked it because you're doing a podcast about every single episode. But why did you choose HIMYM?
Kaitlyn, would you like to take this one?
It's our favorite show. Yeah. It's a show that Kate and I love, that we quote often to each other. Sometimes even just, I remember we had said something about getting like reasonably priced underwear. And we're like, yes, you're the only person who would know that reference. And it's a show that we watch kind of together separately. But it's just a show that we really love. And it's our go-to show when we don't know what else to watch. It's usually going to be How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, even before the podcast, if we were in a room together and looking for something to watch, we would scan every streaming service for like an hour and then always end up watching one of our favorite episodes again. So one day I just randomly was looking for a How I Met Your Mother podcast because I'd never even thought to look for one. And I realized there really wasn't one that was doing what I wanted it to do. So I reached out to Kaitlyn, and she couldn't have been happier to do this 9-year project with me.
Drop in the bucket.
Yeah, luckily we've been friends since we were born, so it doesn't feel like a ton.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like, having done a few State of the Sitcom episodes, there is something about sitcoms that, like you just touched on there, of when you need it and you've got that sitcom, and just some nights you might have had a really shit day at work, you might have had, and you just need those episodes, and it's really beautiful.
It's a real source of comfort, I find, when you know characters that well, because sitcoms usually are quite long running series.
It's that thing of like you're kind of settling back in with people you kind of know, but they don't interact with you at all.
Yeah, it's a total comfort to know where it's going. And they even talk about that kind of in How I Met Your Mother, where Ted's comfort is Star Wars. And so our Star Wars is How I Met Your Mother. So
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I did find is I think because it was so like such a plot driven show when I first started watching it, I was like, well, who's the mum? Who's the mum? And then on the second watch, so once you kind of know, do you think you get more enjoyment out of it?
yeah, I think that I kind of stopped. I knew that we were gonna get there. I kind of trusted them and gave up on like who is it, and they kind of they move away from it a little, so it's not that plot driven later on. But second watch, third watch, I mean, you find new things every single time, and it's definitely a show you can go back to over and over again
and still laugh like it was the first time you watched it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers in this show and a lot of like hidden what do they call it? Easter eggs.
Easter
that kind
eggs,
of thing.
yeah.
Like, it's really, it has a lot of value, but when you go back and watch, you always feel like you're spying something you didn't see before, which is really lovely.
It feels kind of culty, doesn't it? Like it feels like it's really made for fans, but it was really big, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I seem to remember it being like one of the big sitcoms of the 2000s.
Yeah, it was huge at the time. It was always up for different awards and everything, but they knew they had a strong base, and they never let us down as far as callbacks went. Like when there was supposed to be a callback, there was a callback, so you could watch it, just drop into an episode and enjoy it. But if you were a cult follower, you definitely got more out of it.
Yeah, I always use this show as like the example for like how to use a show Bible as writers, like actually honoring the things that have been said previously and making use of them. Like so many shows don't remember, I guess, some of the character preferences or anything like that have come at little small things.
Yeah.
Friends.
Friends. What that's one of them. Whereas this show is pretty true to everything that it tells you. There's a couple of things which I think we might come onto in a bit that I feel like aren't necessarily in character, but in terms of the things that are very just really on point.
Yeah, totally.
And for a show that's so sprawling, that's really impressive. Like it really. I know we're focusing on like those 9 years of their lives, but because it's so detailed about every step of their journey, you're kind of seeing all these different avenues that I find it far more intricate than a lot of shows.
Yeah, and you get decades of their life because they do
childhood flashbacks and high school flashbacks, flash forward.
It goes up to when they're like grandparents, I think I remember.
It goes up to at least when they're some of their kids are in college and potentially a little beyond that. So Marshall has no hair, so it goes pretty far into the future.
That was the image that came into my mind when I was thinking, how old was that? He was bald,
right?
I love the bald head.
And I think it is like all sitcoms. It's so down to the characters, isn't it? Like
characters in the casting.
When they're in that booth and it's 5 of them, you do get that sense of like, I am hanging out with them and they are doing the in-jokes. And like you said, the type of things that you can say to your mates when you're in a bar, like it's really, I think it's more personal than the other kind of sitcoms that are about friends, like Friends. And it really makes me feel like you're hanging out with them.
Yeah. And they also do something we talk about a lot is how much deeper this show goes than a lot of other friendly sitcoms. They're not afraid to really address the dark parts of life and the dark parts of growing up, like horrible breakups, death, things like that I think shows like Friends, because everyone compares them. Friends kind of skates on the surface a little bit of that. But How I Met Your Mother was created in a new generation where we needed more depth in our sitcoms. And I think it gets, for people that don't watch it, they just think it's another Friends, but it handles the darkness so much better and really faces it head on. And that's what I always loved about it.
Yeah, I think that's where I maybe wasn't sold on it first of all until the second watch is I didn't really get the whole. Everyone else is a bit two-dimensional, like a lot of stereotypes in the characters that aren't them, and a lot of the girlfriends that Ted or Barney had, like they really don't write them.
Oh yeah.
But then if you think about kind of your own group of friends in life, you can have that kind of feeling as well. Like everything that you do is so fucking heightened and
Are
clear.
you saying that you don't bother to get to know your friends' partners unless you've long term? Is that what you're hinting at?
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
Hi, friends. I feel like How I Met Your Mother learned a lot from Friends. I know that they, as you say, like it's easy for a lot of people to kind of draw those comparisons, and I don't think it was necessarily created to fill that gap. But it was such a huge show and it's in New York and it's about a group of friends. There's gonna be lines drawn and there's gonna be some influences as well. And I think because of the era that How I Met Mother came out in, they could learn from previous shows and see how like the effect of like the internet and fandom communities and how much people analyze things and pick up on inaccuracies or or like the finer details and stuff. So I think that I've always felt that that's why they've been that it was so key for them to make that a big part of the show, because they kind of understood how audiences were starting to interact with their shows, whereas previously Friends definitely never really bothered about it because they started in '94, but probably they probably did have a few, flashbacks. What's the word? A few like comments from people being like, "This isn't what you used to do," that kind of thing.
Right, but then people would have to like write a letter. At the time, it wasn't like now, which is just immediate feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like even what's airing, you can have like minute to minute like reactions.
And they got some serious flack in season 9 for some stuff they did instantly. Like they got buried for one specific episode in season 9, which you can probably guess. Yeah, I think they got the full brunt of the internet that week.
I think probably ever since as well. I think there's I think we can just address it outright. I'm gonna say it's the whole Robin and Barney marriage thing, and also the final episode where Ted's situation shall we say. Trying to think of the best way of phrasing that in case anyone wants to go and watch it. The treatment of characters. And I don't think anyone's ever quite got that. Like a lot of shows, there'll be something at the time that was a bit of an outrage, and you kind of look at online posts about How I Met Your Mother, and almost every reference like, oh, but that bloody thing.
Yeah. Oh, I regularly search How I Met Your Mother on Twitter just to like find new fans and interact with people. And if they're not talking about HIMYM is better or worse than Friends, they're talking about HIMYM was like great until season 9.
Yeah, but I think
every single person.
Because I think season 9's got a lot of good stuff in there, but the certain treatment of most of the characters is just very odd, and like even Marshall, it just doesn't seem like Marshall, and I don't know, all of it isn't right.
But I think, and maybe that's the thing, is there's so much positive about it. Let's focus a bit more on like why HIMYM. I can't say it. I can't say
HIMYM.
So you were obviously watching it at the time, and so you went through that whole reacting to the good points, the bad points, the sad points, and stuff like that. So, forgetting season 9 for a minute, why is it your favorite?
I'll let Kaitlyn answer first.
It's my favorite because I love the way they tell this story. I love that it's future Ted narrating his memories growing up, becoming an adult. I love the use of time. I love how they flash back. I love how they flash forward. I love the Easter eggs. I love, like Kate said, all the callbacks and how you can pick up and watch an episode and enjoy it. But when you really watch the show and you get to know the characters and get to know the things that they like or the things that they don't like, the little inside jokes for the really like hardcore fans always really pay off. And that's just one of the things I love about it. I love the different characters, the main group, of course. I love Marsha and Lily's relationship. I love how devious Barney is. I love Robin. Ted is, I go back and forth with him, but I just, just everything about the show I love. I love the writing, the jokes, all that kind of stuff.
I'm so with you on the Ted thing, by the way.
I think everybody is.
But it kind of makes it the show. Like if he was played by another actor, I don't think the show would work. If say David Schwimmer was cast as Ted, I would have probably not got through an episode.
Same.
But there's something about Josh Radnor that even when he's at his worst, he's still got a little bit of charm and a bit of this kind of naiveness that you kind of, and he is intelligent, so he's not, whereas Ross Geller was meant to be a scientist but was dumb.
Yep.
And never seemed to show any sense of like emotional or intellectual ingenuity. But Ted Mosby is actually, he does come across as intelligent and he does come across as sensitive and emotional, but then he also is the tool. And
because he's the narrator, it would be quite easy to really put him on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And so obviously he's still going to have his perspective is going to show him kind of being in the right. So you still get that kind of dimension, but it's nice that he is totally fallible. Otherwise, you just feel like you're just watching a show about someone gushing about themselves.
Yeah.
Which is nauseating.
And the creators have talked about that. So in season 1, the first episode that they had to write where Ted really messes up when he cheats on Victoria with Robin, they said it was the most difficult episode to write because so far he'd sort of been just this hopeless romantic doing everything right, but they knew that they couldn't keep him like that for the whole run of the show. Yeah. He needed to make mistakes because first of all, people aren't like that, and also he's telling these stories to his children. So I mean, he has to show them how to be adults. And so they talked about how it was difficult, but they knew they had to make Ted the bad guy more than once in this show. And they do it well. And Josh Radnor is wonderful, even when he's terrible. So he saves it for sure.
And wasn't it based on the writers as well? Didn't they base
a
couple of...
Oh yeah,
it's Marshall and Lily, or is it Ted? I don't know if it's just all of them. Like
so and this is what I love about the show is that it's always felt deeply personal, because I don't know the story behind Friends, but so Carter Bays and Craig Thomas, the creators, went to Wesleyan University together, and so Marshall and Lily and Ted all went to Wesleyan, and it's based on Carter and Craig's friendship. So when they left college, they moved to New York City. They weren't an architect and a lawyer, but they were writing for David Letterman and other TV shows. So it's based on their life. It's based on their love of New York City. And actually, it was greatly influenced by 9/11, which is something a lot of people don't know. They basically said that they'd wanted to write this story about themselves since they became writers, because they just thought their friendship deserved that. And then when 9/11 happened, first of all, they were in the city, so they wanted to write about New York City, but they also wanted to write a sitcom that was for the generation that came after this happened, people that understood what it was like, and this is their quote, for something to turn on its axis and never go back. So that's why it has a little bit more depth, and also they knew that it was now or never. Like this could happen and they could be gone forever without having given this story to the world. So it motivated them to write it, and I think that's why it has a little bit more depth than some other sitcoms, and that's why I've always loved it, because it has that depth.
That's really interesting, because
fascinating,
and it brings so much. So like the whole destruction of the building, and like there's so much more depth to all of their decisions and all of their views of New York and growth and
we're
moving out.
We're gonna have to restart watching this again.
Yeah. It's a real love letter to New York City. I mean, especially through Ted's eyes.
Yeah, which it's partly why we love it, because
it's that favorite city.
But it's also that kind of, like, I always thought it's a show about growth, and I was thinking about it in terms of personal growth, growing up, friends growing up, the whole kind of relationships growing up, all of that. but actually viewing it more as
A city
that whole
growing,
idea
or
of
a city kind of collecting itself.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the whole world, like, you know, it didn't just happen. It happened in America, but we were impacted of it. Everyone had to grow after that
Yeah.
in whatever way it was, and that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
That's the impetus behind.
Wow,
Yeah, and I think you can really see that that sort of idea that sometimes things change and they don't go back in season 9, specifically with Robin and Lily's friendship and how it kind of drifts and how
Yeah.
everybody kind of drifts. I mean, I love the fact that they didn't say, "And we all died together in the same house." The end. You know, they were very. They
Oh
were.
my God,
They were.
that's
They were.
dark.
They were just so real about it and how you grow up and you grow apart and that's what happens. And no matter how special things might have been, you know, life kind of gets in the way. So those were tough episodes to watch, but for me that really resonated with their whole reason for writing this.
Yeah, I totally. When Alison Hannigan is so angry that she's that Robin is missing. I don't know why I'm using actors' names and character names. But Lily's so angry that Robin is missing. She keeps calling them the key moments. I can't remember. Like,
You mean in season
the
9?
important moments.
Yeah.
And she's
Yes.
so angry at her. And we've had that in life where you just suddenly realize, like, you know, you used to go to all your friends' kids' birthdays, and then at a certain point you stop and you just go,
Yeah.
you can't live the same every year. And yeah, I think it does do that beautifully.
Yeah, it's really honest in that way and kind of mostly realistically handled.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how it's no one's fault. Everyone just grows up, you know, like Lily's upset, but I mean, it's painful for Robin to be close to everybody. So, I mean, it's just nobody's fault that it happens.
And just, yeah, how intertwined everyone's lives are at certain points and how that grows. And yeah, it's a beautiful show in that way of it doesn't hold back. I don't feel.
Yeah.
When they feel like one of them is so when they feel like Ted's being a dick to a woman, they say it. Whereas I think in a lot, especially sitcoms, people don't say it to the character. They don't confront their friends, and it's like, no, you should confront your friend.
And that's more real, isn't it? You do rag on your mates, and you do kind of like, because you know each other the best, you can kind of be honest with each other. And yeah, I think that's the fresh thing about this is that it is kind of that, you know, you can't do that. Stop doing it. Like the way that they analyze everything in the booth of like, okay, so what's your next step going to be? No, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's a good move. That kind of thing.
Yeah. And there is a point where, you know, Robin's dating a therapist and he calls them all codependent. And it's so true.
Yeah.
But that's how that's like how they became adults and that's how they survived adulthood for so long.
Yeah.
And very relatable, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but it's how they get away with characters as grotesque as Barney is at times. And,
Yeah.
If they just let them be, then it would be horrible to watch on screen. But because you've got Lily or Robin or Marshall going, no, that's not how you act.
Yeah, it's counterbalanced.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of shows try to have a Barney, but they leave out the depth. They leave out the the storylines that maybe don't get as much play. I feel like if you're not a huge fan of the show and you've seen a couple episodes, you think Barney's the best character just based on like his outrageousness, but he's one of my favorite characters because his emotional growth is maybe more than anybody else's on the show. You know, and that's something that whenever someone says, "Oh, Barney's my favorite character," I immediately know they're probably not a huge fan because they just say all his catchphrases.
Yeah.
You know, and he was really popular because he's Neil Patrick Harris and, you know, his lines are really quotable, but I mean, he has a whole storyline about finding his dad and, you know, season 9, I mean, all this crazy stuff happens to him. So he's got a lot of growth there that I think a lot of shows try to do a sort of a douchebag friend, and it never lands well because he's just one note, and you got to go deeper than that.
Yeah, I think introducing his family and everything really helped his character kind of feel a lot more empathetic. Otherwise, he would have just been.
Well, otherwise he would have just been Norm from Cheers. The catchphrases, and really quite mean about people. And because you don't see any of Norm's family or anything, he never grows. He's just this horrible bloke that sits at the bar moaning about his wife. Whereas because you see Barney grow and stuff like that, it's totally like he actually becomes more like Sam, or he grows and he shows his vulnerability, and it's
yeah,
and of course
absolutely.
Harris. For fuck's sake.
So I was gonna ask, actually, do you guys have favorite, like your actual favorite characters? Obviously, you've just said, Kate, that Barney is one of them. Is he actually the favorite, or is there somebody else you guys both like?
We do have a ranking. We each have. I think, Kaitlyn, is our ranking the same?
But we go back and forth with Barney and Lily.
Is the same.
I think for you and me.
Yeah. So my current ranking, as it stands, is Marshall, Lily, Barney, Robin, Ted.
Is that from favorite to least favorite, or the other way around?
Marshall is always our favorite character.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He has got a real charm to him, but it's interesting because we haven't really mentioned him yet in this recording.
Yeah.
But
actually, that's
but
really
he's like this sort of steady, reliable thing that
He's
you
his
can.
presence.
Yeah. He goes through a lot. I mean, he's the only character that loses a parent in this show.
Those two
that
episodes, yeah.
I like it was a gut puncher for me because like pretty much around the same time that season came out, I was still like in grief from my father passing. So when I saw that episode, I was like, oh my God. So I mean, it's always been very personal, but watching Marshall get through that grief with them, they're tough episodes to watch, but I don't ever skip them because they're really,
and they were
really
well
important.
done
And
too.
He's
handle it that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We touched on
Absolutely.
previous State of the Sitcom. We touched on how sitcoms deal with emotion, and that was like one of the big one that we all picked out of going, yep, that is like a benchmark of how to tackle grief, and as you say, do it so well that people who are dealing with grief can have emotions with it and kind of embrace it, and then people who aren't can feel that passion,
but all within a sitcom genre.
Yeah.
You've still got to have comedy around a really serious subject.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're at the funeral and it's still funny, but in a way, like gallows humor kind of. But then, and I love that it isn't just one episode where Marshall's like, "Thanks guys for coming to the funeral. You're the best friends ever," and then it's over. It shows him staying at his mom's house and not wanting to go back to his real life. It shows him, feeling like he isn't in the right career anymore because life is so short, and so they let the grief sort of hang while not making it a drama, which
and again
he does so well.
Yeah,
it's great.
And what you said earlier of like how well thought out this was, the fact that they had the countdown for like,
oh god,
everything is so considered, and then you have so they don't just finish that episode and go, okay, move on. This was a momentous point. And it doesn't even happen at the end of a series. It's like in the middle. And that's what really throws me, because it feels like it would have been, you'd culminate in the weddings and and this just happens. And it's a point in life been building.
And that's life, right? Like, it just surprises you out of nowhere. I mean, you think that Lily's going to get out of the cab and say she's pregnant because that's what it feels like it's building toward. And it's the worst thing he could have possibly heard instead. And so, I'm like getting choked up just thinking about it. It's crazy.
It totally gets you. And I think something that we picked up on is that the writers on this show, and I know you do your kind of whenever there's a female writer,
lady
writer, yeah.
There's so many different viewpoints coming across in this show, even though it's Curtis and Craig's baby as such. All these different emotion and so many different beats, and all the characters they're so well rounded. So the women are, Lily isn't this one dimensional mum who just wants to, she has so much her, and it's so broad, and I think that's a lot down to the writing.
Wasn't she based on one of their wives as well?
It's possible. And I think she and Robin kind of both buck the stereotype. Robin doesn't want to get married or ever have kids. And Lily didn't just give up on her dreams to get married. I mean, that first season, everyone hates Lily in the first season because of what she does. But yeah, they're kind of both pushing against the idea of what it is to be a woman, a girl, a girlfriend, a wife, a mom. And that's really appreciative. And I am very glad that they had women writers and a woman director on set for that.
I didn't realize that she directed like
almost all of it.
99% of the episodes.
Yeah, all but a very small handful. Kaitlyn, is it like 8 episodes she didn't direct? Something like
I
that?
want to say 7,
Okay.
but
I think
I remember we got called out by a fan and corrected.
But it does steer it. It steers the kind of, it's like this steady hand
Yeah.
taking these characters through all these different feelings
and also because of all those callbacks and like that constant self-reference, you kind of do need that constant director.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's rarely an episode that is just a standalone where it has nothing to do with anything that's come before or after. Like there aren't very many quote unquote evergreen episodes where it's just about nothing. So yeah, I think having the one director and having the 2 creators that were obviously super involved in this. I mean, they write a ton of the episodes. You can feel when they're writing an episode because they're always sure to make it come back to his story about finding his wife, like finding the mother. It's very important to have that steady hand, like you said.
And like you said earlier about when, like, what they know when to bring the callbacks back, and that's like how friends do. You know, when you meet your friend, you see your friends. Certain times you don't do the nostalgia thing, and then certain times there's just a perfect moment to bring up. Oh, do you remember that night then that happened? And they do that so well. Just dropping the blue French horn or the pineapple, or things like that. That just at the right point where you go, perfect. Like,
I love it. You just got. I love it. You started off going, you know, I'm not the biggest fan, and then you're like, yeah, I love that.
And now he loves it. See, we got him.
Yes. See, it always, like
best
100 miles, comes back around.
Always comes back around.
it is when people talk about the really brilliant stuff of the show. It does make you remember that, and like that. All of the things you've been bringing up have made me remember like my favorite moments and stuff. So like the technique is just perfect, and it is one of my favorite parts of the show. That's why I think I enjoyed watching it, as those callbacks and those moments where I was like, oh, that's clever.
Would you say that as a writer?
As a writer.
That's the phrase that comes up constantly in episodes. As a writer.
But then for me, the you've just written Dead Dad. That's not the episode. What's it called? Bad News. Bad News.
Dead Dad. Season 6 episode. Spoiler alert.
My note writing isn't great.
Dead Dad.
Do you have any particular favorite writing or moments or jokes or particular bits of the series?
Oh my gosh. Kaitlyn, you want to go first? I'll try and think of one.
Oh God. I know. I love the slap bet, of course. I love it. Let me think. I love the jokes about Robin being Canadian.
There's that brilliant bit where the whole bit where they're all coming up with different jokes about her being Canadian.
Yeah.
And then in the background, there's a couple living their entire life, like having children. It's such a clever little idea of just like, that's so interesting and experimental to just have this surreal thing off in the background. And then, whilst you're just doing these silly jokes about Canada. I thought it was really clever. And it's the type of thing you wouldn't notice on first watch.
Yeah.
I love the whole Robin Sparkles thing and how that's not just a one episode. It just keeps coming back and gets better and better and better every time they bring that little bit back.
Yeah, I do kind of want that jacket.
Oh, me too.
Hell yeah. It's a good one. It just follows her through her whole life and just haunts her. I just love it so much.
I also really liked the way that they would reference the fact that the concept of the show is him talking to his children, and so they will change things to make them more like child friendly, which also really works from a production perspective as well, because they want to get this on screens at a time where it's not going to be like R-rated or something.
Like sandwiches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that. up like constantly. So
All the
you
time.
just, and if you're just a casual viewer and you didn't see the first episode where they say, and that's what sandwiches is, it must look a bit weird. Like, why are they suddenly eating? You know?
Sandwiches are good any time of day, kids.
It also, the thing I love about the way they write those things is they're not just gags. So like the doppelganger, they use that
Yes.
to tell the story. They use that to make the characters grow. So it's not just, they could have just had a silly little throwaway of going, oh, we've all got doppelgangers in New York, but they actually embed it in the narrative and the reason behind their decisions and stuff. And I think that's just a really clever little writing gimmick.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they bring that back at some really big moments. So they really just knew what they were doing, and that's why we're here.
A sitcom as well, right? As you said, that they were David Letterman writers. So this is a really that's really accomplished. But I don't think it's necessarily their last sitcom.
Oh.
Because it's always been this thing about the potential spin-off of How I Met Your Father, Dad.
HIMYM.
HIMYM rolls right off the tongue. Yeah, they've talked about that. They're also in production, or I don't know in production, but they're shopping around an idea that's sort of like, it's called Making Friends, last I heard, and it's about some like a nerdy guy who like makes himself a robot friend. So it's like artificial intelligence or something like that. I remember it was months ago that Craig Thomas was talking about it on Twitter, and asking people to sort of signal boost the idea and cross their fingers. So that was the last I heard. I haven't heard them talking about any sort of spinoff or reboot lately. But maybe that's just super duper under wraps.
Fun fact.
I know everyone wants it.
Fun fact, on the IMDb page, the director for Making Friends is listed as Pamela Fryman.
Oh my god.
That's a great one.
Yeah, right?
That could work.
So,
But they actually did do a pilot of How I Met Your Father, or How I Met Your Dad, with like Greta Gerwig and Meg Ryan, and like
That's a
it
huge
was a
cast.
big deal. Like they were ready to go with it, and it just for
fell
whatever
apart.
reason.
didn't go anywhere.
I want
I just don't think it needs to be done. Like personally, I don't. Maybe right after it could have been cool, because I love the mother. I love her. I think they picked the perfect person.
She was perfect.
And those episodes from her point of view, I would have watched 9 seasons of that. But I don't think it could have happened any other way.
Well, that's I think that leads on really beautifully, because we always ask whenever people talk about their sitcoms of, would you want to watch a reboot? Now, obviously, this is a more modern sitcom than a lot of the sitcoms we talk about.
3 years ago, I think it is.
I think it was 2015. I think it ended. But yeah, would you want to see a reboot? Because they're doing it with they've done it with Will and Grace. They did it with Roseanne.
Right.
Obviously, that one didn't quite work out. But...
Whoops. Shouldn't have been racist. Everyone learned a lesson, right? So for me, they cover so much of the characters' lives. I don't see how they could do a reboot. I mean, unless they really stick to the canon stuff we learn about where their lives end up. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out where they would even pick it up to do a reboot, or if they would just start all over with different people. For me, unless it's the original cast, I don't want to watch it. And even if it is the original cast, it would have to be the original creators, the writers, the director. Anything short of that, I feel like it would get messed up, and I would not want to watch it. What about you, Kaitlyn?
I feel kind of the same. I'm not sure what that would look like, and I don't know that I'd want to see it anyway.
It reminds me of like J.K. Rowling kind of going back or J.K. Rowling going back and like telling us more things about Harry Potter that kind of ruined the canon stuff about it. Like I don't want to know. So I've sort of stopped paying attention to that universe because I liked it the way it was.
So like the Cursed Child and the Fantastic Beasts, what's it called?
Spin-offs,
Spin-offs and stuff. Yeah, it's not quite the same because there's no source material.
Right. I'm all set. Don't need it.
The other thing is, like we mentioned it earlier, I don't know who else could be Ted and like, or any of them. Like,
Alison Hannigan is Lily. Like
she's Lily, yeah.
And Neil Patrick Harris to pull off that character.
It's his charm. Like and it's so hard to find now. I feel like actual talent is becoming less and less important. So they would have to have people with another genuine connection to each other. I mean, you see it build, and by the end of season 1, they are just firing on all cylinders, and they're clearly such good friends. And that's not just the actors. I mean, you can tell that on set they're having a really good time. So I feel like trying to do that again would be like lightning in a bottle, like really hard to get. And I don't want to cheapen it. Like, if you're not going to do it perfectly, don't do it, please. Please, God, don't do it.
That whole Will and Grace thing I didn't personally think it worked.
No.
So, but I think some shows could handle it. But yeah, not this one.
If Christine Milioti is around,
Milioti.
anything in this universe, then let's.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love her. Yeah.
Joe sings the.
She's so
Joe
amazing.
sings the Le'Veon Rose.
Her version, like the best version of Love Rose ever, and that's not.
It really is. It's on my Spotify. So, I listen to it.
I remember not wanting them to find the mother because there's no way they could find someone to fit in with that group, and she was just so perfect, so perfect.
As soon as they showed her face, that at the end of that episode where you just see her boots the whole time, and Lily's like, she's out there wearing boots I can borrow, and there she was, and they show her face. I literally cried because I loved her in 30 Rock. She just had like a little silly part on that, and then she was in a movie recently. It might have been Wolf of Wall Street, and she like got left for the blonde lady. And I was like, oh my God, it's her. And I was just so excited. And I knew that she could do the emotional stuff as well as she needed to.
She was
in the Black Mirror,
episode. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Again, so beautiful, but also has such a talent on screen. Like she's just able.
I can't really like look away, but she just conveys emotions so well. There's so much depth.
Yeah, those eyes, Oh,
oof,
they tell a lot of stories.
Yeah, and like through the whole show, Ted keeps talking about how quirky the mother is, and I'm like, oh God, she's gonna be insufferable. Like she paints robots doing sports, and I was like, that sounds so stupid. But then when you see her doing it and why she's doing it, she's like working through her grief. I mean, it just all made sense, and she wasn't this like manic pixie dream girl trope anymore, and she was just like a real person, and she was just perfect for him.
Wow. We did it. So for anyone moaning about season 9, there's a lot to love about that season because it's I think, and this has really made me realize how much I want to follow you on your journey because there is so much.
Get addicted.
But then, as well as watching the show, I think we said it when we first finished watching it, and we were just like, we want to see the creators. Like in Always Sunny when Charlie Day's got that map of all the wires and everything and how his brain works. And that's how did you work out from the beginning that this was going to happen and then that all of these threads were going to come together? Like, I'd love to see that. And I think you're going into that kind of detail in your episodes. And so, we're really excited to.
I feel like their writer's room was like an airplane hangar. Like, to just up on boards and go, remember this over here.
It had to be because they knew where it was going in season 1 because they told Josh Radnor how it was going to end, and they told the kids too. They taped most of the kids in seasons 1 and 2 because they didn't want them to age too much. So the kids you see in season 9, those scenes were taped season 1, season 2.
I did wonder how they.
Okay. Well, see, this is the insight we need.
I've learned a lot. Like I always earlier on, you mentioned the reason why that the Marshall, Ted, and Lily all met at Wesleyan, and I was always thinking like, interesting university to pick. Like, why Wesleyan? And now it makes
right. Just some random little liberal arts college in Connecticut. Yeah. Kaitlyn's actually been there. She went and visited.
I found Hewitt Hall.
I love traveling.
Do they have a HIMYM society?
No, unfortunately they don't. But my husband and I, it's not too far from where I live now. And and we drove over there and just like wandered around on the campus. We're like, I wonder if Marshall and Ted and Lily watched football games over here. And we're like, no, they're probably too busy eating sandwiches in their dorm room.
Yeah. I don't think Dr. X would like football games. There's something about
That we found that we want as many in real life of the places that they go to in New York. It's like the burger joint. And I don't think many of them are real, are they? We were a bit like, oh no.
Yeah, they aren't. The bar is based on a real bar that they used to go to after taping Letterman. And you can go there and they have like a whole How I Met Your Mother menu and everything like that, which is pretty
Travel
cool.
Grace Papaya is real.
Grace Papaya is real. Yeah, there's stuff that they sort of just might change the name a little bit and you can find something similar, or it's been, totally steamrolled and it's something else now because New York is always changing.
Mm-hmm.
They even reference stuff like that as well. Like the whole, like the fact that the perfect burger place is a bank and stuff like it.
Yep. I love that episode so
good.
much. We actually we got a chance to ask Carter and Craig a couple questions through their production team recently. I'm not sure when that's going to air, but it's going to be on the sort of the official How I Met Your Mother podcast that they ran from season 6 through 9. And one of the questions I was sure to ask was, where really is the best burger in New York? Because we need to know.
We do.
Yeah, we need to know that.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We really look forward to that. And then, so yeah, you're finishing up on season 2 at the end of 2018, and then you're moving on to season 3. And yeah, you tell us what you've got in store.
Oh my gosh. Well, we've got some interviews lined up with other How I Met Your Mother fans for some of the bigger episodes. We've been working hard to sort of create a bigger community, and we're going to be launching an Instagram account, and yeah, just covering episode by episode, sticking to the hits and doing what everybody seems to really enjoy.
Amazing. And we
We're
really love
hearing more.
Yeah, we really love your social media, the engagement you get, and the kind of, so when you do the kind of favorite moments and stuff like that, and the legendary moments.
Legendary moments.
It's just a really nice kind of engaged community, and people who love the show definitely, kind of follow you and get on board, because it really is a community of people that want to know more and love finding out more about this show that is so close to their heart.
Well, it appeals to that type of person who looks into something more in depth because they make it that way, which is great.
Are you saying you?
Yeah, and it's been really fun. I think Kaitlyn and I wanted to do this just because we love the show. We didn't have any sort of predictions in mind of how it would go. Of course, we wanted it to be a hit and we wanted people to like it, but people keep finding us and really enjoying it, and all these new opportunities keep opening up, like with you all and some other podcasts we've gotten to talk to. And Carter and Craig follow us on Twitter, and yeah, I mean, Craig interacts with us pretty regularly, and so I think he's pretty happy to see that there's still so much love for the show out there. It's clearly such a special thing to him. So we can't believe what's happening and how the community is growing. So we're just so happy to be able to do this and that people enjoy it.
It's really exciting to hear that so much is building around that. So yeah, thank you so much for spending time with us and talking about HIMYM today. I'm really enjoying saying HIMYM, by the way.
We'll actually find you online.
Course. Yeah, Kaitlyn, you want to let them know where they can find us?
You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at Hey Beautiful Pod. We love getting emails from people, and you can email us at heybeautifulpod@gmail.com.
Hey Beautiful Podcast.
Oh shoot, Hey Beautiful Podcast at gmail. Kate does all of that stuff. She's our social media queen. Hey Beautiful Podcast, at gmail.com.
Yeah. And on Instagram now at Hey Beautiful Pod. We'll be starting when we pick up season 3, once we take a little bit of a break.
A little breather.
On Instagram, yeah.
Great.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. And
thank you so much for having us. This was so great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It's been great fun.
Bye.
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 Bye.